Like I work for you, Ron. I got a job. What's up, everybody?
My show.
Good evening and welcome to the NBA trade deadline edition of Big Facts. I'm joined by my friend Aaron Barrison. I'm Justin Everett. And we've got some trades to talk about today, buddy.
Big day.
Big day. A lot of crazy shit happened. Not the craziest. Lonzo Ball is still a Pelican. Kyle Lowry is still a Raptor. But Victor Oladipo moved, and Aaron Gordon moved, and Nikola Vucevic moved, and there's a lot to talk about. So I've got a list, and we're just going to go down them. So how are you doing this evening, bud?
I'm good, man. Woj is making me feel like it's Pearl Harbor all over again. We got Woj bombs everywhere, baby. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's tell everyone how it affects the league.
So let's start with the most recent one, which we just talked about before we hopped on. So the Dallas Mavericks trade James Johnson, a second-round pick in cash, for J.J. Redick and Nicolo Melli. So Nicolo Melli is obviously a roster fill spot, but J.J. Redick going to Dallas, I think, is a great move for Dallas. I think you have the best playmaker in basketball right now in Luka. And like you were saying before, and I want you to say again, I think addressing the efficiency that you lost in Seth Curry when you traded him away, and that's really why James Johnson didn't work. So I think this does nothing but improve Dallas. I think it's a great move. They probably might have been able to try on a buyout, but everybody knows that if he had a choice, he'd have come back up to Philly or Brooklyn to be near his family and home. So I think Dallas made the right move, and I think they're definitely better for this move.
So two things happened last year with Dallas, right? The first thing was they were one of the most, if not the most efficient offense in NBA history. Luka had obviously the year that he had. Seth Curry shot close to 50% from three. He was the best in the league. And they also went and they decided that they had a problem on the defensive side of the ball. Hey, we just can't outscore anybody. Let's try something a little bit different. The offseason, they go get James Johnson, tough guy, been around the league a little bit, was on Miami, plays good defense. But let's not forget they also brought in Josh Richardson, who was with the Sixers last year, who was a great defender. So they thought they could make something work. Started off the year poorly. We're out of a playoff spot for a while. Really were missing the depth they had at three-point shooting. We remember Josh Richardson as a Sixer. Some nights he's 4 for 6 from three and scores 25 points for the game. Other nights he can't hit a bucket and he's trying to ISO and trying to pretend he's Allen Iverson. So adding a guy,
Danny Green, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but he likes to ISO a little more than Green. So adding J.J. Redick gives them that dynamic back that they had last year. They still have Hardaway. Porzingis is healthy. They're going to end up making a run. It's a good move for Dallas as far as what they like to do on offense and what Luka likes to do specifically.
I'm 100% with you, man. So the next move, which is a bigger one, Victor Oladipo goes to Miami for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a 2022 swap right on one of the Nets picks. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about with this. First of all, I don't know that ever in the history of the NBA has a top 5 elite superstar been traded for a bag of balls like James Harden was traded for a bag of balls. The best player that they have gotten and kept is now Kelly Olynyk. And that is, I mean, you got pick swaps with a team that's going to be picking 25 to 30 every year. So they're basically second round picks.
Right.
This is just atrocious. For Miami, I don't hate this. I have one question, though. What is the difference between Jimmy Butler's game and Victor Oladipo's game? I think they're a very similar player. And obviously that gives them two options. But to me, I feel like one is it's inevitable that one is going to take a little bit away from the other. Now, we'll throw in another rumor here real fast. Lamarcus Aldridge is rumored to be leaning towards Miami in a buyout market once he's bought out. I think that addition really creates problems there with Oladipo because you have two ball-handling guards that will be able to work the pick and roll with Lamarcus Aldridge and do a lot more. But I question, is Victor Oladipo just a little bit younger, a little bit lesser Jimmy Butler, you know?
Well, let's see. Miami Heat, I'm trying to figure something out. Give me 1 second because I'm assuming that they're going to have to make some decisions with some expiring contracts. So who's going to be a free agent at the end of this year? Trevor Ariza's done after this year. Kelly Olynyk, they just traded. Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, right? Okay, so this move gives, I think, Miami some flexibility based on that. They get to evaluate Oladipo and decide, hey, is Oladipo playing like he was 3 years ago when he was on the Pacers, where I could rely on him to take me into a game, be the ISO score 25 points, or is he going to be the guy that he was at Houston and before that, or right after that injury? So if Oladipo ends up taking some minutes from a guy like Duncan Robinson and one of those guys become expendable, they're trying to figure out, who am I fitting with Bam and Jimmy that gives me the best opportunity to win for the next couple years. Now, we, for a second, and not for very long because the East was jumbled, the Heat were not looking good. They had COVID issues. They had injuries. They still got Dragic. There's a lot of guards and a lot of forwards on that team, and Bam is there. You made a point that they might be trading Olynyk because they think Aldridge is coming in. I think that sets them up successfully, but they are going to, at least for this year, have one of the better starting lineups in the East, as well as some of the best depth in the East. But there's a lot of guys that do a lot of the same things. I'm not sure that they can build off the same type of and play the same type of way they were in the bubble. But when you got shooters and playmakers like that all over the floor, you didn't have to give up much. Oladipo may or may not re-sign, but I think Oladipo wants to be there, and it's going to end up being the choice of the Heat. Hey, do we give Oladipo a big max extension that he wants, or would we rather keep guys like Duncan Robinson and fill the rest of our roster out?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think the Heat are definitely going to be right in the middle of the Eastern Conference. And if Lamarcus Aldridge does wind up there, they're going to be a tough team in the playoffs.
Yes.
Little bit of a lesser trade, but one that you love and I like. The Clippers trade Lou Williams to Atlanta for Rajon Rondo. You had said before we came on, you get a lot better defensively, which is obviously what LA is trying to be anyway with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. I don't disagree with that, but Rajon Rondo off the bench does not give you what Lou Williams does. He just doesn't.
Sure.
So I get the reasoning for this, but I don't know that this increases the Clippers' chance in any way, shape, form, or fashion when it comes down to the second round in the Western Conference Finals.
I don't disagree with you. I think what they're looking at this point is, and they're actually kind of, if you think about it, but in the same situation in the West that the Sixers are in the East, meaning that the seeding doesn't really matter to them at this point. It's like, what do we do in the playoffs? It's all about the playoffs, whether they finish 1 through 4, same thing with the Sixers. Lou Williams was not very good in the playoffs last year. He's an older vet. He gives you one thing on one side of the ball, whereas Rondo can have games where he's a playmaker. He's developed a shot. He actually was shooting threes in the finals last year at a very high ticket, and he's a great defender. So now when you're going in and you're facing a team like the Lakers, who has they have by far the number 1 defense in the league. If you decide at some point that you want to start starting Rondo and Pat Bev's your backup, you have these menaces kind of all over the floor on defense. Rondo, Pat Bev, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They still don't have the big guy that's really going to be able to defend in the way like they had a Harold just giving them that energy last year. But at least
maybe they wind up with a guy like Andre Drummond after a buyout. I think that would be unbelievable.
If they do, they're going to give the Suns a lot of problems, and the Lakers. It would benefit the Lakers, I think, at this point, to maybe not get a good seed and try to face their toughest competition in the first round when everyone's healthy and hopefully coast through. Speaking of which, the Nuggets made a move in the West, correct?
Yes, they did. So we'll skip Portland for now and we'll go straight to the Nuggets. Give me a minute so I can tell you. Here we go. So by far, and this is just Justin's opinion, the most confusing trade of the day. Yeah. The most confusing trade of the day.
Yeah.
So Orlando trades Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark to Denver for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first-round pick.
Say that trade one more time for me.
Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first-round pick. Now, the pick doesn't matter. Throw it out the window again. It's a back 5 of the first round. You just drafted RJ Hampton. Mm-hmm. And Gary Harris is, in my opinion, a B-level guard for sure. He's not a top-tier Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, but Gary Harris, I think, is a good player. He's not a liability on defense. Not that he's great at it, but he's also a guy that is deadly accurate most of the time. And Aaron Gordon, how are you fitting Aaron Gordon on a team with a guy like Nikola Vucevic. I mean, Aaron Gordon operates the best inside out. Now, Aaron Gordon can shoot. There's no doubt. I mean, he's not a bad three-point shooter, and he can do a little bit of catch and shoot also. But Aaron Gordon's game is inside out, a lot like Tobias Harris. They're very similar players. And I don't understand how you've got a guy like Nikola Jokic whose game has to start in the post and how you're going to squeeze in Aaron Gordon or how it makes you any better. Now, I mean, flashy-wise, obviously Aaron Gordon's name is a little bit bigger than Gary Harris's, but I just don't understand this one, dude.
It's kind of weird because it's like you can fit him into the starting lineup, but he's like kind of that in-between from Jokic and Michael Porter Jr., and then they're throwing in Aaron Gordon. Michael Porter Jr. is a little bit better of an offensive player, but he's terrible on defense. So do they want a big that can kind of body people down low defensively? I don't know how, like, if I'm the Nuggets and I'm trying to make a push, I'm sitting right now in the 5th seed. I'm trying to like fill out my roster either with depth or another superstar. I mean, they have Paul Millsap. They have Michael Porter Jr. They have Jokic. Now they're adding another big forward that isn't really like that. You know, they have Jamal Murray to score, but wouldn't you like need just some kind of swing 3-and-D guard? Aaron Gordon gives you a little bit of that, but there's just seemed like there was better fits, and I'm not sure how this benefits their team at all. And he's going to take touches away from a guy that they're trying to get hot. He takes touches away now from Jokic, who's a bit of a playmaker. He takes away from Murray. He takes it away from their three-point shooters, and he's on the lower level of what their three-point shooters are. I don't know if they're trying to maybe go up tempo or trying to run the break a little bit better, but it is an odd move. He's considered an all-star 1 or 2 years in his career, whether he makes the team or not. But you know Aaron Gordon from dunk contests, not because you're like, oh, my God, Aaron Gordon's going to change the dynamic of my entire team.
Well, up until this year, Aaron Gordon and Zach Levine were the same player, and Zach Levine elevated. Aaron Gordon didn't.
Yeah, and Zach Levine just they're similar. Zach Levine is just a way better offensive player at this point.
Exactly. So before we get to who I think is one of the more improved teams in the West, I do want to mention Chad commented. The Heat did trade for Bielitsa from the Kings. They sent Mo Harkless.
The Heat got him?
Yes, they sent Mo Harkless and Chris Silva. So I don't disagree that is a good move. But Bielitsa is, at this stage of his career, strictly an outside. He's Kevin Love. He can't play defense. He is just an offensive weapon. He's probably going to play 12 to 15 minutes a game. I still think that they're in the market for Aldridge, and I think he makes them incredibly better. So let's go to –
Hold on one second. So the Heat now have – so the guys they traded for today, they got Oladipo and what's his name?
Bielitsa.
So they got those two. They still got Jimmy Butler, Dragic,
Harrow,
Avery Bradley, Bam.
No, Avery Bradley got traded.
Okay.
Avery Bradley got traded.
And then they still have Nunn and Duncan Robinson. I mean, I like the move, but how much ball is there to go around on that team?
And again, with Oladipo and Butler on the floor, both of those guys are the best with the ball in their hand.
Yeah, Harrow and Duncan can shoot off it, but Oladipo needs the ball in his hands a little bit.
Now Spo is a great coach, bro. Spo might find a way to make it happen, and if he does, more power to him.
They have a very deep roster.
I want to talk about who I think is the most improved team in the West today, and that's the Portland Trailblazers. So the Portland Trailblazers sent Gary Trent and Rodney Hood, which Rodney Hood's
so inconsistent.
Yeah, for Norman Powell. From Toronto. And I really believe, man, this is a move. You keep mentioning Yusuf Nurkic to me, and I get why. I understand that he's a 15-10 big when he's healthy and he's efficient from the floor. I don't think he has anything to do with what success Portland can have right now, though, after this trade. I think you can have Powell's big enough to play the three. He can defend a three. You can have Dame, CJ McCollum, Powell, and Carmelo on the floor at the same time at any stage throughout a playoff series. And at any point in time, you've got 4 guys that can really get hot. And I think offensively, they are going to be trouble for every team in the West except for the Lakers. The Lakers the Lakers are the best defense in the league by a mile. By a fucking mile. The second place to the Lakers can't even reach out and touch where the Lakers are. So I don't think many teams offensively can get through that Laker defense. But Portland just made a real big step to potentially be a problem.
In my opinion, making that move, I would be shocked if Portland doesn't finish second in the West.
Now,
the Lakers aren't going to finish first because of injuries. It doesn't really matter where the Lakers finish as long as LeBron and AD are healthy going into the playoffs. So just kind of write it off. But if we're talking about just the Western Conference, I can see the Jazz keeping their spot just because they've been blowing teams out all year. They're 32-11. And right now, the Trailblazers are 7 games back of the Jazz, but they're only 4 games back of the Suns for the second spot, making the move for Powell. And let's talk about this for a second too. The Raptors, just in general, I know they're having an off year. I still like Nick Nurse as a coach. The way I've watched them over the past 5 years draft and develop guys is better than any other team, and it's not close. Fred VanVleet, undrafted. Siakam, got him late. Norman Powell. There's these guys they just pull out of nowhere, and they become very good starters, if not all-star level almost players across the entire roster. And they seem to just keep finding these guys and then putting in the pieces to make them competitive. Now, this year, obviously, they're making some moves because they're in the 11th seed in the East, which is embarrassing in the East when you have teams like the Knicks, the Hawks, and even the Bulls at this point in front of you, which we have to talk about in a second.
We're going to get there.
The East is shaping up a little bit differently. The Hornets losing LaMelo is going to fall out of force, so it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, and I'm excited to watch. The Blazers are going to be a problem for a lot of teams, and if they can figure out a way to make all those guys click, Melo coming off bench, they're going to have a good time.
So we're going to spend 2 seconds on how the Boston Celtics make no fucking sense. The Boston Celtics send 2 second-round picks to Orlando for Evan Fournier. I have very little to say on this topic other than how many guards does it take to win a championship? Boston Celtics answer is all of them. What the fuck are they doing? What happened? I don't want to really talk about that because there's no explanation. But what the fuck, man?
Yeah, it's, Fournier doesn't do anything, again, different from just about any. They traded, I think, was it Jeff Teague? So Fournier on the – hold on one second. Ad popped up. Fournier on the Magic, 20 points a game, 4 assists. And, they basically just blew their roster up. Like, they know they're not going to be competitive. But the Celtics have just been going after guards and forwards that shoot threes. And I'm trying to understand, like, it's not working. You have too many guys that need the ball in their hands. And now you just added another one who's a great catch and shoot guy. He doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. But you have all the catch and shoot guys. You have all the ISO players. Where's your big guy? What makes you think that you're going to be able to, A, even with all those guards, outscore a team like Brooklyn, or B, go up against a Joel Embiid, a Ben Simmons, guys that are just towering over you guys and bullying you around all game? I'm not sure what it is that they – because remember there was rumors they were going after Jeremy Grant. So, like, what would that have done for you?
Yeah, Jason Tatum's Dollar General fucking version. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. And especially given – what we're going to talk about next, which I feel like is the first blockbuster trade of the day.
And real quick, that team has not been the same. They for years, they were fleecing the Sixers. They were acquiring draft picks. They were getting the better of the draft picks. They acquired all this capital. And then the first big move they made, remember, was trading away the heart and soul of their team in Isaiah Thomas, who was having a really great playoff run. The city loved him, to get Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving stayed for 2 years and then bounced on them. So the first big move they made didn't work out, and since then it's just been like Kyrie Irving since he just tanked that franchise almost.
It's so true, dude. So considering this package, I'm going to tell you the package, and before we get into this trade, I want you to tell me if the Boston Celtics had a better package, because obviously they did. But Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, and 2 first-round draft picks. Boston beat that deal, right? There's no way they can't. They have so much. Anyway, I digress. Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, 2 first-round draft picks going from the Bulls to Orlando for Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu. So Al-Farouq Aminu obviously will probably never see a second of playing time, except for maybe a spot defensive matchup.
Yeah,
But
right.
Nikola Vucevic going to the Chicago Bulls is gigantic. This is an offensively gifted center who's 7 foot, a true 7-footer, and you have a guard forward combo player that really is unmatched in that ability to play both spots. In Zach Levine that can average 30 a game without that guy with him. So now you have something starting to shape up a little bit in Chicago. Chicago has made a couple of moves today that I believe this is that ownership group and that management group selling out every possible thing, playing every card in their sleeve to convince Zach Levine to re-sign. And I don't know that they pull it off, but if they do, good on them. And I think Nikola Vucevic is a great compliment player to Zach Levine.
Well, he's really good, and for a couple reasons. He's for how he's been playing, because I think he was injured last year for a while. He has a 4-year deal that was worth $100 million, which in the NBA for an all-star level guy is not that bad of a deal. He signed through 2023. We talk about per on the court all the time. Joel, at the time of his MVP play, right before he went down with injury, his PER was at about 30. Vucevic is a guy that's PER right now is at 23. And this year, he's giving you 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. And, 41% from 3. So the Bulls have been trying to find Zach Levine a running mate for the last couple years. They drafted Kobe White. We all thought Markkanen might beat it. Porter was there for a little bit. And they just haven't been able to draft or convince a free agent really to come to Chicago because for whatever reason, free agents have just kind of stayed away from Chicago for a while.
It's cold.
It's a windy city, right?
It's fucking cold.
So if they make a playoff push, which they're doing this for Zach Levine, like you said, they need Zach Levine to stay as an up-and-coming superstar. And right now, I believe that they are sitting in the ninth spot. They're in the 10th spot. They are basically a game and a half back from the Celtics. And you have to remember, the Hornets are in the 4th spot. They're going to drop down. The Hawks have gone on a winning streak with their new coach, but that winning streak's not going to continue. And the Celtics and Pacers haven't really done anything. The Pacers have LeVert back, so let's see what happens. But I think this puts the Bulls in a position where they're like, hey, I think if we can show Zach Levine that we can creep into that 8th or 7th spot, that we're heading in the right direction, and maybe we can come get a third guy if you sign a contract to come play with us again.
Sure. And I mean, again, guys like Oladipo are out there. Kyle Lowry's a free agent next year. There's guys that are going to be out there, and we will talk about Kyle Lowry because the Toronto Raptors are out of their fucking mind for a couple of reasons we'll talk about. I have one more little minor move, and again, what the fuck are we doing here? The Denver Nuggets also traded for JaVale McGee for a reason I could never even try to explain to you. I understand the backup big is huge and having a defensive presence where Jokic isn't great. I get all those things. But does this help you? No, it does not.
I think it helps them minimally to go up against a team like the Lakers just because of his length and athleticism on defense, and that's it. Because, Jokic is not playing defense on a guy like Anthony Davis. He's not guarding him out at the three-point line. He's probably a little bit too slow. So you can't – JaVale did a good amount for the Lakers last year during the regular season. Dwight kind of took his minutes in the playoffs because he was playing so well, but he's still an athletic big that can kind of jump around, cause some problems, block a couple of shots, and that's really just a move to compete with the teams at the top of the West that have a DeAndre Ayton, have an Anthony Davis, and you just need to give Jokic a little break and let them play some defense. So it's not a bad.
I get the sense, but I mean, for me, 2 second-round draft picks and another player, I don't get it. I don't fucking understand.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the trade that Daryl Morey did pull off today. We're going to spend a few minutes on that and why it's such a gigantic effect that I listen to Devon. I love Devon Givens on 97.5. I listen to him as much as I can, and he coincides with my ride home. But he seemed a little down on it, and I couldn't understand it. And we really do have to talk about the value that was brought here. And then after we're done talking about the trade, I have to talk about Kyle Lowry. And I have to talk about not only Kyle Lowry's contract expectations with a trade, but the shit that Toronto had the fucking nutsack to ask teams for is unbelievable. So first,
now, who's that report from, by the way?
Which one?
The one that the Raptors were asking about.
Philadelphia?
Mm-hmm.
Woj retweeted it from somebody. I don't remember if it was Sham or who it was, but Woj retweeted it.
Okay.
So the trade that was pulled off, and I said to you on the phone earlier today when we talked, Daryl Morey just continues to win me over. I was not really skeptical. I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was this acutely accurate on what is necessary at the time. It's unbelievable. So Philadelphia trades Terrence Ferguson and Tony Bradley, leaves the Sixers.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City trades George Hill to Philadelphia, and Austin Rivers and 2 second-round picks also involved going to Oklahoma City. So George Hill and why he's important. First of all, I know a couple of people on my Facebook post and yours were, I don't want to say bothered, but a little upset Tony Bradley got traded. He did show a lot of promise. There's no doubt.
Sure.
But what people also have to understand is Paul Reed just won the MVP and Rookie of the Year of the G League. They have a young big that's a little bit more versatile than what Tony Bradley gives you. Tony Bradley's Dwight Howard, but Paul Reed is a stretch forward. They have a guy there. That's why Tony Bradley was expendable. And I really believe, dude, if Tony Bradley didn't get this playing time with Embiid down, I don't know that this trade happens.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if you don't see that out of Tony Bradley. I don't know that you get this. So George Hill's critical for a couple of really big reasons. The Sixers lack veteran leadership. What J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler gave to a young Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, we have realized since their departure, is irreplaceable. Again, Dwight Howard with Joe right now. You can see the difference of having a guy who's won and been there in that locker room. It's different. And number one, what George Hill is going to provide is a coach on the floor to Ben Simmons. Mm-hmm. All of these passes that Ben Simmons may be good enough to pull off, but not experienced enough to read right, George Hill's going to cut out a lot of mistakes in Ben Simmons just by the fact that he's such a long-tenured veteran point guard. And what he does is he takes all the pressure off Shake Milton for having to be the sixth man. The sixth man on an NBA roster in the playoffs is gigantic. It's not just a spark off the bench scoring. It is the guy that's interchangeable into your starting five. That's what your sixth man is. And Shake is not a guy that gets it rolling all the time. He's not consistent. He's young. He's still learning how to play his game of basketball. And George Hill is a veteran guy that slides right into your six-man spot. He can start in the starting lineup at times when necessary. He takes away all of your concern of Ben Simmons in the half court because he is a guard that can shoot. He has great catch and shoot numbers. He is nothing but a monstrosity of an upgrade over what they had at Shake Milton. And it didn't cost you Shake Milton. But I do believe in the buyout market, we have to address Seth Curry or Danny Green have to come off the bench. They have to. There's no two ways about it. You've got to find a guy that can help you there. Yeah. But George Hill makes this team exponentially better.
So aside from just what Hill's numbers were this year, and have been really for the last couple years, 12 points, a couple assists, you can rely on him late in games. First of all, he's an 84% free throw shooter. So if you have to take Ben off the floor for some reason, he can bring the ball up the floor for you. He's going to make the shots when he's fouled. He has had a career high where he's shot in the 40s for his 3-point percentage, and his field goal percentage is always over 50%. But he's very sure-handed. He doesn't turn the ball over. And the biggest thing with Hill, this is why Morey is so good at what he does. He has a lightly guaranteed contract for next season. So Philadelphia could either guarantee it and keep it on its books, or use it in a trade, or they can cut him to reduce its payroll. So it's something that gives them a playoff spot, something that's insurance for Ben, and something that they don't have to make a decision about for the next couple years right away. And he's a couple years younger than Lowry is. So if you couldn't make the move that you really, really wanted to make, but you had to make and were able to make this move, Morey did a good job. Did we all want more? Yes. But I know in his mind, and you'll tell us what it is in a second, everything else just seemed to cost too much, and we'll tell you why we didn't get Lowry.
So, Lowry and Lonzo, but Lowry more specifically. And I'll tell you the truth. I think Lonzo's staying in New Orleans is genuinely, they want to try to rehab that and keep him there with Brandon Ingram
He's
and
leaving next
Zion.
year.
I know there's no doubt about that. I'm 100% with you. But he's a restricted free agent, isn't he?
Yeah, so someone's going to have to offer him more than what New Orleans is going to want to match. So someone's going to overpay for him.
So the Charlotte Hornets could give him a fucking supermax to get him on the same floor as Melo.
That would be fun.
And New Orleans can't afford to match. I get you. So there's two what the fuck are you doings with the Kyle Lowry. Hold on, I'm scrolling to get one of them. So the first one, and this does not involve the Sixers. When the Miami Heat called the Toronto Raptors about Kyle Lowry to kick the tire, like they did about Victor Oladipo, the conversation began and ended with Toronto that Tyler Herro must be involved in a deal. And that just blows me away. Who the fuck do you think you are? That's not Pascal Siakam you're trading. That is 36-year-old Kyle Lowry. Nuts. The crazy part is, and this is why Sixers fans have got to be happy. Listen, I love EB. I am Team EB. Elton Brand's a great players manager. But Elton Brand would have fucked this up. Daryl Morey knows better.
Yeah.
The asking price for Kyle Lowry. Now, again, this was the asking price. They didn't negotiate hard. As soon as they heard this, Daryl Morey hung up the fucking phone and said, no, thank you. Was a 2021 and 2023 first-round pick. Already too much for Kyle Lowry. Already too much for a 36-year-old point guard. Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle. And I read that, bro, and I was like, what? No fucking wonder nobody wanted to talk to you. That is unbelievable.
You can't ask for any first rounders for a guy of that age, first of all, let alone two. If we thought that Kyle Lowry, let's just pretend for a second that Lowry was still in his prime, which he's a year and a half to 2 years removed. The year they won the championship and the year before that, those were his prime years. He was a little bit older. He's in good shape. He's playing great defense. He still does all of that stuff. The most you're going to get out of Kyle Lowry is 15-6 for the next 2 years before he really kind of loses it, because he's never really relied on his athleticism anyway. He's a good defender. He bodies you up. He hits big shots, so on and so forth.
Shit as we gave James Harden for looking like a walrus and wearing a fat suit, Kyle Lowry's not in shape, dog.
He's always been like that, yeah.
Kyle Lowry's been a little bit past thick and chunky for like 5 years now. He's not a guy that, again, I'll tell you the truth. What Kyle Lowry would have given me, I don't see much more than what I'm going to get out of George Hill. I don't see it. And you're asking me for not only a young guy that we know nothing about in Ty Maxey, the best wing defender in the NBA by statistic right now, and 2 first-round draft picks.
Yeah, and let's get to that for a second, because what does the George Hill move do for a guy like Matisse Thybulle, either in the starting lineup or back? Like, can we find a way without making a significant move to put Matisse into the starting lineup for someone like Danny Green and live with that?
I think you made that move because if you bring Matisse into the starting lineup, Danny Green's defense is nothing like it used to be, because he's also 35 years old. But Danny Green is still a good wing defender. He's a plus defender. He's not a liability in any way, shape, or form. You have guys like Furkan to be your scorers when you need them in the playoffs, like the spot scorers. Danny Green should be your spot defender off the bench anyway. He's 35. Matisse Thybulle, you're going to need for this is what Doc Rivers, I think, knows that he's going to be able to do better than Brett Brown did. He understands what the grind is when you're trying to make a championship run. When you're a second round and bounce, you never learn. You never see it. The grind of 4 playoff series is a fucking lot. Mm-hmm. And that is something you need to rely on Matisse's youth and his athleticism. And I think that sometime over the next 3 weeks, we're going to see a couple of lineups. Once Joe comes back, Doc's going to try some shit, because I think we're not going to see his playoff rotation until probably the last game or 2 of the season. Doc's not going to go out and foretell his hand like that. I really believe Matisse might be his option to start over Danny Green. Seth Curry gives you the scoring that you lose in Danny Green. You keep him as your starting 2. or George Hill, or who gives a fuck how you work it out. But you'll have Matisse's defense and his athleticism. I mean, that dude leads the league in steals right now. That is he's a guy that plays fucking 14 minutes a night.
It's unbelievable. I had said to you a couple weeks ago, and I know we talk about Ben as a defensive player of the year, but I truly believe that, and Ben is a different. You can compare Ben a little bit to LeBron when he was in Miami, because he can guard all 5 positions. So although he might not have been the pure best wing defender in the league, a lot of people did consider him the best defensive player in the league. Even though nobody's going to give him that award, it might end up being the same thing with Simmons. But if Matisse is playing 30 to 35 minutes a game and putting up these defensive numbers, you can make an argument that he might end up being the best defender in the NBA.
Dog, I don't think that's a might a little bit. I think that Matisse Thybulle is the best wing defender in the league. I mean, Matisse Thybulle defensively, like Allen Iverson was a terrible
People don't
defender.
watch the Sixers, so anybody watching this right now is going to disagree.
But bro, like Allen Iverson was a terrible defender, right? But he was an artist at getting a steal. He was an artist. Right. He was just so good at sneaking out the ball. He was awful defensively, but he was
similar
really
to Curry.
good.
Similar to Steph Curry.
Exactly. Matisse Thybulle has that knack for getting his hands on the ball, and he is an unbelievable spot-up defender. Yeah. I mean, he's got length, he's got strength, he's got size. I believe genuinely, dude, I think that their best bet, the Sixers playoff rotation has to look like Ben, Seth Curry, Matisse Thybulle, Toby, and Joe as your starting 5. Your 6th man off the bench is George Hill. Your 7th man is Danny Green. And Shake is your Shaker Furkan is your I need a bucket guy. Just somebody go out and spark the second unit, and that's what they're there for. Dwight is your defensive prowess when Embiid needs a rest. Like, I really believe, bro, Embiid's fitness right now, we might see this cat play 40 minutes a game in the playoffs when he comes back. If he's healthy, you're going to see Dwight Howard play 6 minutes a game. He's going to have
to work his way back into shape, too. So hopefully he can get we need Embiid back with a 3-week head start going into the playoffs. So I'm hoping he gets back, somewhat soon, because it's going to take him 3 weeks to work himself back into shape. He's in better shape. He's eating right. I understand that. But when you're not running, you're not on the court, it's completely different, and he needs that time.
Your conditioning, guys. His physical stature is going to be fine. It's your conditioning and your stamina. When you're not doing cardio, you lose your cardio. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
And that is definitely something he struggled with in the past. I don't know how much easier it'll be this time because his physical health is better. But there's no doubt, dude, you need at least, 7 games, 8 games to really let him work back in to be the guy he was pre-injury. And if you really want to compete with teams like Brooklyn, you can't have a 7-game series against the 7th or 8th seed. You can't do it. You have to be able to handle the first series in 4 or 5 games and let Embiid really work into that playoff form. You do have older guys like George Hill and Danny Green, and Seth Curry's not older. He's 29, but Toby's 28. You have guys that aren't, and again, have never been through this grind all the way to the finals, but you're older guys. And this is something, dude, where they have to rely on this athleticism. If you really look at this roster pound for pound, 1 through 8, their athleticism is unmatched across the league. It's unbelievable what they've been able to put together, and Morey's done it all under the radar, bro. I mean, again, 6 months ago, we were all calling for Tobias Harris's head. Get him the fuck out. Why did they pay him a max? They overpaid him. Tobias Harris is averaging 23 and 6 a game right now on really efficient scoring. And that is, I believe, bro, when you lead by example from the top down, when Daryl Morey is your general manager and Doc Rivers is your head coach and Sam Cassell is your assistant coach, it changes the culture in a way that you get the maximum, Deadpool said it, bro, maximum effort out of every single guy. And that is, I think, it is the most critical change that the Sixers have had. The talent's there, no doubt. Embiid's steps are there. But that change in leadership, dude, changed this entire team.
It's a joy to watch, and just some of the small roster moves. Like, we're gonna kill Danny Green for the rest of the year. It is what it is, because he's not the same player he was.
Sucks, bro. We can be honest. Jake Hernandez on Facebook, he's right. He fucking blows, but he's old.
But he's also got 3 rings, and it's not a coincidence that 3 teams brought him in and he helped them win rings. It's not coincidental.
Bro, he went over 10. He went over 10 in Miami, and that fan heckled him. 3 rings, dog.
Whether it's on the practice floor, whether he's making guys better, whether he's helping guys with shot. And then Dwight Howard's another guy that just has that experience who we can't say enough about, who, Morey basically was like, all right, Lakers want to get Gasol, we'll take Dwight. That's going to kill the Lakers, by the way. If anything, the downfall is going to be that they didn't sign Dwight and they went after Gasol for some reason, because now they're in a really bad spot.
And they let JaVale McGee go with Dwight. That was really the problem.
Really bad.
I mean, if you hung on to JaVale McGee, Marc Gasol doesn't kill you because you got JaVale defensively. But you let go of your only two defensive bigs. And I know that Trez plays hard. He's 6'9". He can't be a center in this league anymore. I mean, Montrezl Harrell is going to literally look like a seventh grader playing against Joel Embiid. You can't do it, man.
So real quick, there is going to be a buyout market now that free agency is over. There's a lot of big names that we're still kind of waiting to see.
I've got one I'm hopeful for. I've got one I'm really hoping for. Like, when I tell you really hoping, I mean this would be the greatest end to me. If Otto Porter gets bought out and Daryl Morey finds a way to bring him, fuck me, Jesus. He is a younger Danny Green.
He's on Orlando. And they just blew the team up. So he might get bought out. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a couple guys. Drummond is probably going to go somewhere like the Clippers, the Nets, the Mavericks.
The Knicks is the new team. Yeah.
Lamarcus Aldridge is possibly, and this would be something that would actually make sense for Boston if he went there and they actually made some type of move like that. But
they can't do something right, dog. Look at what they keep doing.
It's weird to watch how good Ainge was and how bad he seems now. Porter's there. I'm surprised the Wizards didn't make any moves. Well, so you have to imagine they're probably trying to find a way. Russell Westbrook, listen, man, we've talked a lot of shit on. I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to speak for you, but I've talked a lot of shit on Russell Westbrook over the last 10 years. And I've hated him and I've loved him at different times, but he's been overall frustrating. And Russell Westbrook in DC, bro, is doing it. And they've revitalized the fan base a little bit, and he's making Bradley Beal look better, because how can a guy that averages a triple-double is going to make anybody around them look better? I think that they're trying to maybe, bro, find a way. If I mentioned to you today, if Brooklyn does not make it to the finals this year, I don't think Kevin Durant comes back. From what I understand, there is an option in Kevin Durant's contract every year to opt out, like LeBron's contracts normally are. And again, even if it's not an opt-out. Isn't the opt-out more for a way to restructure, to build the team around them, not to let them go?
Potentially. But say this, right? Say that Kevin Durant just says, I'm not coming back to play. And they have to find a way to either buy him out, move him, trade him, whatever. Kevin Durant is from Washington, D.C. When Kevin Durant left the Golden State Warriors, a lot of people forget this. The Washington Wizards with Bradley Beal and John Wall were right up there with places everybody thought he'd end up, because he was going home. And then he wanted to go play with Kyrie. Kyrie's got a new best friend. James Harden slid right into KD's spot, and it's been seamless. If you have a way as the Washington Wizards to maybe weasel your way into a player like Zach Levine in the free agent market, like a way to trade or acquire Kevin Durant, you're going to be able to keep Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook together. They'll both want to stay there. So I think they feel like they're a player away from 4 to 7 seed every year for the next 5 while their guys age out. And why do owners own franchises, Ron? It ain't to win fucking titles. I don't care what anybody tells you. Billionaires own assets to make fucking money. And that's what they're going to do. And as long as they have Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, they're going to put asses in seats, and that owner is going to rake in fucking dough, and the new TV deal comes, and they make even more. That's what this is about in Washington. Washington is like the Jacksonville Jaguars, dog. They don't want to win a Super Bowl. They love picking in the top 5, and Shad Khan, or whatever the fuck that dude's name is, just rakes in the Jacksonville rich white people money, dog. That's what he does.
It's really funny because there were so many reports when James Harden got traded to Brooklyn that the Sixers had a better offer on the table, and they didn't want to make a move because they didn't want to deal with Morey. And now Houston lost 20 out of 21 games. John Wall's John Wall. DeMarcus Cousins is DeMarcus Cousins. Victor Oladipo, the guy that you actually got in the trade, is not there anymore. And it's funny because we've talked about this in the past too, Justin. letting your pride and your ego get in the way of a potential business move out of spite for someone that you dislike is going to bite you every time. The owner of the Houston Rockets did not do what was best for the Houston Rockets. He did a move based off his pride and his pettiness, and they are now officially one of the worst run franchises in the NBA.
I think maybe worse, dog. I don't think that you need to say one of. I think right up with Boston right now, they have colossally failed.
We'll give Boston at least till the end of the year to make the playoffs or something like that. Any more basketball that you have to get into? Because there's some NFL stuff that happened.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just need to recap that Kelly Olynyk and 7 picks, 26-30 is what they got for fucking James Harden and Avery Bradley. This is just, and you did not kind of better. You had Ben fucking Simmons. And I'm not telling you that Ben Simmons is James Harden on any level. James Harden's an elite scorer, and Ben Simmons doesn't know how to spell shoot. But you could have had Ben fucking Simmons. And because you're butthurt that Daryl Morey said, this looks like a house fire, and I'm going to run now, you're just pissed off and cost your friend. Unbelievable. No, I don't have much more basketball, bro. Let's get into the NFL.
So Tampa Bay continues to do it. By the way, there's a lot of good free agents on the market still, just so everybody knows. But Tampa Bay was able to go ahead and sign Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year, $10 million contract. So basically at this point, they have left their entire roster. They haven't made a decision on a guy like Antonio Brown yet, but they do draft really well. All the wide receivers are coming back. They re-signed Gronk. They got Shaq, Levante David, Ndamukong Suh's back in the middle. They are going to go into the draft and be able to draft best available. So here's another thing. If over the weekend, the Chiefs asked Tyreek Hill if he would restructure his contract, and he was like, no, my contract's my contract. I just want to play. And we've been talking about this since the beginning of our podcast. When you pay any guy that much, and I don't care if it's the best quarterback of all time, which he might end up being in Patrick Mahomes, and then you have just 1 or 2 guys that don't want to do that restructure, and you keep trying to either push the cap or restructure. Kansas City is a year away from maybe being if Kansas City does not win a Super Bowl next year, they are not going to be in a good spot. And Sammy Watkins has been visiting other teams. They might lose him too.
Kansas City's entire future leans on President Joseph R. Biden Jr. Because if all Americans aren't vaccinated by the start of football season and the cap doesn't go up by 45 million next year, it's over for them. It's over. It's over. It's crazy. It's crazy. So Tampa Bay is just a monstrosity of an organization. Tom Brady's a fucking winner. That's it. That's it. Tom Brady, like LeBron James, is a fucking walking NBA Finals. A lot like Scottie Pippen was to Michael Jordan, by the way, for all you Jordan lovers. Michael couldn't win without Scottie, but we don't need to talk about that. But Tom Brady is a fucking winner, and guys want to play with him. And that's the big deal, bro. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is the teammate that Tom Brady is. Guys take that for Tom Brady because Tom Brady does that. You know what Patrick Mahomes isn't going to do? Patrick Mahomes ain't going to restructure $45 million a year, dog. Patrick Mahomes going to go take his check every Friday down to the check cashing place and go bank money, bro. That's what he's going to do. That's just what's going to happen. And Tyreek Hill doesn't want to play that game. Tyreek Hill doesn't think if that guy doesn't need to, why the fuck should I? And I'm down with what Tyreek Hill's doing. We have to talk about Howie Roseman being a fucking moron, though. What if we
hold on before we get into the Eagles, because we'll spend the last 10 minutes on it. Just to update everybody who hasn't been following free agency today, because it's still not over. So Bucks extend or re-sign, their offensive tackle Donovan Smith, who ended up playing very well the last half of the year, 2 years, $31 million, protecting Brady for the next 2 years. Like I said, Ndamukong Suh got 1 year, $10 million coming back with the Bucks. The Patriots re-signed James White somehow to a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, which they just seem to be able to get their favorite players back on $2-3 million deals. T.Y. Hilton goes back to the Colts, so he is officially, at this point, Carson Wentz's number one wide receiver. Hopefully, we'll see if they get him some more help. Green Bay loves to help Aaron Rodgers, as we know. Big signing in Green Bay. Mercedes Lewis, 2 years, $8 million. They got him a 37-year-old tight end. Clap it up for Green Bay, continuing to fucking ruin Aaron Rodgers' prime. Jets signed Tevin Coleman. They've actually made a lot of the same type of moves. Jacksonville, the Jets, and
hey,
the
bro,
Patriots.
how much was Tevin Coleman's contract?
1 year, $2 million.
So can I talk about the Eagles now?
One more. I think I got one more. Malcolm Butler goes to the Cardinals. That just happened a couple hours ago. And DeMarcus Robinson back with the Chiefs.
Malcolm Butler signed what kind of contract?
What's that?
What kind of contract Malcolm Butler get?
Malcolm Butler got 1 year contract, probably not worth that much.
$5 million?
It's probably something like that. And then the last one I want to talk about, the Seattle Seahawks haven't done anything on offense to shore up the line for Russell Wilson, but they did go ahead and they re-signed Carlos Dunlap, 2 years, $16.5 million.
Seattle's wasting Russell Wilson too. So you mentioned a couple names that make my ball sack itch. Malcolm Butler's one of them. And
your
again,
ball sack itches so much, bro, that I might not be me anymore. I think you just
don't worry about my personal problems. No personal questions. Anyhow, Malcolm Butler, Tevin Coleman, James White, $2.5 million, $2 million. What we're assuming is $3 to $5 million.
Yeah.
Howie Roseman.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Howie Roseman spent $3.5 million that he really worked fucking hard to even access on Joe Flacco.
Mm-hmm.
On Joe Flacco. Mm-hmm. Now listen to me, bro. Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl. I get it. Joe Flacco's like
He's a good backup. He's a good backup.
Joe Flacco's like 117. He's won before. He's been successful. A mentor to your young quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is something that's important. I understand. But the San Francisco 49ers were the only other team in the market for Joe Flacco. And the rumor is that the San Francisco 49ers had a 1 year, $1 million contract offer, which means not only could you have saved some of the money that you spent, you could have saved $2 million and went and got Tevin Coleman with Joe Flacco. Yeah. You only had to outbid them by a little. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't have to outbid them at all. Do you know why? Because Joe Flacco is a fucking Philadelphia native. He wanted to come here. He wanted to be close to his family and move his kids and his wife and all of his people back. You could have probably gotten him for less money than what San Francisco offered. And Howie Roseman, the capologist, spends $3.5 million on, again, a backup quarterback, but not Ryan Fitzpatrick backup quarterback that you could count on for 8 games a year. Joe Flacco was 0-4 as a starter last year, playing in place of Sam Darnold. You have to be fucking kidding me. We had Tevin Coleman for $2.5 million. You had a pass-catching running back, which you sorely lack on this team, for less money than you spent on a guy who, if all goes right, won't take one fucking snap all year.
Yeah, so there is, when I saw that, and this is nothing against Joe Flacco, because I think as far as backups go in the NFL, he's a good backup. You like to have Joe Flacco in the quarterback room. He's won a Super Bowl. He's a vet. He could teach you some things. He might not perform well on the field anymore. He's older, but he's a good guy to have in the quarterback room. To work that hard to get under the cap and then sign a guy when realistically, I think you probably could have got any decent college quarterback with one of your 3 4th or one of your 2 5th round picks. Like, this is going to be a down year for the Eagles. We all agree, right? Unless Jalen Hurts ends up being, unless his ceiling comes a lot more quickly than we think it is, or he takes this massive year 2 leap, the Eagles are a 5-win football team.
Unless you get Kyle Pitts and maybe you win 7 or 8, win the division. But I digress.
Okay. So if Jalen Hurts,
that was me saying pick Kyle Pitts over Jamar Chase, just so I'm clear.
But here's my point. If Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Joe Flacco is not going to win more games than Jalen Hurts is.
No shot.
So your season is tanked to begin with. So why not just get the quarterback in the 5th round and sign a guy on a 1 or 2 year contract that maybe can help you for the next 2 years? And next year,
Kevin Coleman, like Kevin Coleman, like Marlon Mack, like Marlon Mack, like Marlon Mack, like Malcolm Butler, like fucking James White.
You kicked the can down the road for 3 years, converting signing bonuses so that you could sign Joe Flacco.
That's what I mean, bro. This is the shit that makes me pound my fucking head against the wall. And listen, I do need to talk about this. We're gonna talk. I assume we'll wait till Sunday's show because obviously we had planned to talk about free agency moves and some draft things.
Yeah, we're gonna pick division.
We'll get to that on Sunday.
Bets, yeah.
When we talk about that, I need to talk about this more in depth. I don't think that there's a 1 ounce of a fucking chance that he's still there on the board. But if Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts are on the board at the same time, you take Kyle Pitts, Philadelphia Eagles. You take the guy that is a 3-headed dragon that can help your young quarterback 12 different ways. Jamar Chase is a special wide receiver. He is special. You are going to be like, fuck, man, that guy's good. But you need so much more than just a receiver.
So you
can find a receiver in the 20s every single year. You can find a receiver in the 4th or 5th round every single year. Kyle Pitts is a generational talent. He is better than Travis Kelce. He's better than Darren Waller. He is a special talent. And I don't think he's there. I think he's the number 2 overall pick in this draft. I'm saying it right now.
So
but
2
if he's
things.
There, you got to get him.
2 things. Most things are starting to be actually reported that some of the moves, and I forget exactly why, I'll explain to it next show for people who want to turn in. The reason the Jets have made some of the moves that they've made is because they are planning on taking a quarterback and moving on from Sam Darnold. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that they can move down, still get the guy they want, acquire some assets, and draft a quarterback and move on from Darnold. We'll talk about that next time. I forget. It was a rumor from a credible source.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for what I'm about to say, guys. So the Jets can trade down and still end up with a pretty good QB. Justin Fields is being mocked 9 or 10 right now. So they can trade down to 6, 7, 8 and end up with Trey Lance or Mac Jones.
Yeah, right.
Justin Fields. They don't need Zach Wilson.
Right.
So if your story is right, in my opinion, the Jets trade back just a couple of picks.
Yeah.
And how fucking nuts would it be if Howie Roseman trades from 6 to 2 to draft Kyle Pitts? I don't think that should. First of all, I'm not a proponent. I hope
he doesn't.
But I just wanted the thought happened, and again, the loud voice, the rational Justin goes, that's fucking dumb. Nobody would do that. But the Philadelphian that lives like right back here, that whispers directly in my ear, goes, Howie Roseman's still the general manager.
Yeah.
He's done crazier things.
Now there's 2 other things being reported. The Falcons have so many needs, but their biggest needs on the defensive end. So most people are mocking them to come off of that pick because you're probably not going to take a quarterback. You need so much on the defensive end. There's not going to be a defensive player that comes off the board till at least the 10 to 15 range and maybe even the 15-ish range. It's going to be mostly offensive players. So they might move down and someone takes their spot at a QB. And the other thing was the Bengals. And again, we'll talk about this more. A lot of people are starting to have Pitts going to the Bengals.
No way. You can't.
I know. I don't disagree with you. You need to protect Joe Burrow. But the reason they're saying is he's a blocker. You lost A.J. Green. You lost John Ross. And you need another pass catcher for him. And he also blocks.
You can't. You got to use 2 through 7 and find a dark horse in the later rounds. You cannot.
Yeah.
If the New York Jets will trade down for a quarterback, the most logical trade that exists, because if Atlanta stays, they could take an O-lineman. They need help. They could take a Jamar.
Atlanta's going to take whoever they think's the best player.
100%, which is why, depending on the guy that's there at 4, they might not trade down. If you can trade up from 5 to 2 and give up, let's just say, a 3rd round pick and a future 5th or some shit, because it's only 3 spots. You, as the Cincinnati Bengals, you move to 2 and you draft Penny Sewell or Christian Darrisaw at number 2.
Yeah.
Whichever guy you feel like gives you the most versatility and the most consistency to help you with Joe Burrow. You cannot draft a skill position when you have a top 10 pick and have a quarterback like Joe Burrow without an offensive line. So I disagree with you that 15 is where the defensive players start. The 10th pick with the Dallas Cowboys is the furthest that a defensive player will go. I mean, that has to be Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. They need help in the secondary. So I think that there's so much offensive skill in the front end of this draft, plus all these fucking quarterbacks that are – dude, I saw one the other day that had Mac Jones going 11th, I think. And I was like, who the fuck is drafting Mac Jones at 11? But these quarterbacks are skyrocketing to the top.
You know what's going to be interesting? So, and I want to talk about this next show as well. The Giants added offensive pieces, but they also added more guys on defense to an already really good defense and signed them long term. They're kind of out of the picture for defense, but now you got Kenny Galladay, you got a pretty decent line. Saquon Barkley's coming back. I know that there's everybody's saying, "Oh, Daniel Jones is on the clock," but if someone like Justin Fields falls to me and I'm the Giants and I now have Kenny Galladay, a great defense, a great running back, and a good offensive line, I am seriously – because I'm not going to be in that position next year, right? More than likely with the Giants. They're going to have a pretty good year. Even if it's just 500, you're not going to be back kind of where you are. I am seriously considering trading Daniel Jones, trying to either sit where I'm at or get like an offensive lineman for him or another draft pick and drafting a Trey Lance or a Justin Field and seeing if I can blow my offense up. I
don't disagree with that, dude. I don't hate that. I don't think that New York is smart enough to have that level of foresight because they really, bro. Every report says they love Daniel Jones. I don't know if it's the getting sniped on the 10-yard line when he has a clear end zone in front of him, or all the fucking fumbles. Probably the only quarterback that fumbles more than Carson fucking Wentz did. I don't know what it is they're in love with, but they're in love with him. And would that make sense? It would. But again, at the same time, bro. If there's a market for Daniel Jones, there's a market for Matt Ryan. And if I'm at the Atlanta Falcons and I know that Daniel Jones is being asked about, I'm dangling Matt Ryan out there because I'm already at number 4. If I can get number 14 and number 4, all of a sudden, dude, if the Atlanta Falcons draft Justin Fields at 4 and find a way to get a defensive playmaker in that teen range that they would get to, the Atlanta Falcons all of a sudden are a fucking relevant team again. Yeah. There's so many things that can happen, bro. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the most, I hope.
What if the Giants try to jump up into Miami's spot? Miami moves back, takes the best player available, and the Giants get to select the quarterback they want at 3 because only one QB's off the board at that time. I mean, if I'm the Giants, I'm like,
you got to. I mean, but I don't know. So are you including Daniel Jones going to Miami?
You would have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is just another – I know that it's hard for you to consciously say it, but this is another subconscious admission by you that Tua is not the guy because you're trading for Daniel Jones now. So
they're going to have to compete for a job.
So, yeah, and again, if Daniel Jones is competing for the job, he's not the fucking guy. I just shared your fucking nonsense a couple of weeks ago when you told me that Tua is the next Steve Young and going to win fucking 14 games next year.
43 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
You're fucking out of your fucking mind, bro. Are you assuming they end up with Jamar Chase at number 3? I'll give you that's a little less crazy, but you're still out of your fucking mind. No way.
What's the most likely scenario for Miami at 3 is trading back.
Absolutely, because they already have another pick further back.
Unless they love like Darrisaw or Sue is there, like they'll take an O lineman, but I think that's where it ends.
Yeah, I mean, they can take a receiver, right? But they already have Devontae Parker, who is their sure-handed guy.
Yeah, they signed Fuller. They got Mike
Will Fuller's now your speed guy. So the only wide receiver in this class that they don't have is Jalen Waddle. You're not fucking drafting Jalen Waddle 3rd overall.
They could draft Pitts if they want to run double tight ends.
But I don't know that you can do that with Tua as your quarterback, bro. You need too much athleticism. If you go skill player, you do need another wide receiver, but you need an over-the-middle guy. That's what Jalen Waddle is. You're not drafting Jalen Waddle at 3. Fuck, you trade back from 3 to 15, you probably still get Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm excited for the draft, bro, and we'll do
Yeah,
our division winner. So I'll wrap up since I started. You give your final thoughts, and then I'll wrap up.
Yeah, I don't really have any. I'm excited to see, what happens when the Sixers team comes back. I'm really excited to see how they're playing without Joel Embiid, and even with Simmons missing games. I think George Hill, we're going to watch him over the next couple games. You're just going to see a pro. It's just there's a pro on the basketball court that could be a starter, going to accept his role. He's going to be able – they're not going to miss a beat with their second unit. Shake Milton is just too inconsistent to be handling the rock and be the point guard all the time, and George Hill is going to take the second unit to another level where they're not struggling and inconsistent on offense. So watch for it. Be happy
run around
about
and make plays, bro. Like he needs to. It's gonna be, bro. I'm telling you, George Hill might be the best thing that Daryl Morey's done since he's come.
It's a good pick.
We talked about this earlier today, which we didn't really get into, but all of this basically came from Al Horford.
Yeah.
Without that, we have none of this. It's unbelievable.
We flipped Horford into Danny Green and George Hill. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And the money-wise, you technically for Seth Curry too, because Josh Richardson's contract got negated by the money he said. It was unbelievable. Daryl Morey is a god of a general manager, and I was wrong to be even a little bit skeptical a couple of months ago. I agree with everything that you said. Sunday, we're going to get into our division winners. We did this when we started our show last year.
So here's what we're going to do, too. I don't even necessarily want to get into the division winners, but I want to take a look at what the Vegas odds are for division winners and give the best value bet. Not the best who is definitely going to win, but if we're looking at each division, if I was going to bet who is the best value, who would I put my money on to try to maximize what I could win? I think
so you send me your odds wherever you get them from, and I'll look and I'll do that too. I do want to get into what teams seem like they have pushed themselves over the top. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in the standings this season.
Yeah.
I think not only just for moves that have been made and changes of players and personnel, because the Rona seems like it's going to be over, and we're going to have full stadiums of fans again, and that is a game changer in places like Philly, in places like Las Vegas. There's a certain thing.
Not in Indy, though. Not in Indy.
Not in Indy, Carson. Fuck you. I hope you die in a house fire, you fucking ginger. Anyway, watch our YouTube channel. I want everybody to go back and watch. I am at least going to give my advice on your bet based on our mock draft also, and where I think guys are going to fall and land. Go back and check that show out on our YouTube channel. Find us on our Facebook. Find us on our YouTube at Big Facts. Aaron's on the Twitter. I'm starting to play around with it now, even though I'm old as fuck. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to Sunday, and I hope we have a good show, bro. I'll see you then.
We'll see you then, guys.